Multiple times throughout my life, I've made the case that Anakin Skywalker / Darth Vader is the best villain of all time. So many things about him just work perfectly. He has a connection to the protagonist of the story, the audience sees him as powerful and how he's written in all forms of media, and he has a redemption that works, and works really well. On paper, Darth Vader seems to be kind of cheesy, right? But then this scene in Rogue One happens, or this scene in Fallen Order, and this in Rebels, and this comic panel. He's scary. To a majority of the population of the galaxy he inhabits, going against him is an instantaneous death sentence, which, credit where credit is due, is really consistent throughout most of Star Wars and I would say everything that's produced after the original trilogy. Despite your thoughts on the Obi-Wan show as a whole, Darth Vader was done almost perfectly, inspiring fear into enemies and his allies in the most heavy of quotes possible alike. But why does his redemption still work? By all accounts, it doesn't make any sense. He killed a bunch of kids and is a galaxy-wide murderer and torturer for a fascist government. So why do we root for Darth Vader's redemption, but not William Afton's? I'm sorry, he was the first villain that I thought of that had also killed kids. And once that line goes in the script, it doesn't come back out. Anakin Skywalker's whole story, for those of you who are unfamiliar, goes as follows. Anakin is a slave boy on Tatooine who's freed by a couple of Jedi, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. There, he also meets Padme, who he will eventually marry. Don't think about the age gap. George doesn't want you to think about that part. Before Qui-Gon can train him, however, he learns how powerful Anakin is, and due to his age, Anakin is rejected by the Jedi Council. Qui-Gon dies, but makes Obi-Wan promise to train Anakin anyways, because apparently promises supersede the orders of the Jedi Council, and also because Qui-Gon has realized the corruption of the Council and the Jedi Order. Anakin trains with Obi-Wan before meeting back up with Padme years later. They badly flirt.
I don't like sand.
And Anakin begins to dream of his mother dying. Him and Padme go to Tatooine to find her, and he finds her just moments before she dies. And then he kills...
And not just the men, but the women. And the children, too.
Anakin and Padme wed. The Clone Wars happens, spoilers until this time code. Anakin gets a Padawan, Ahsoka. He is shown his future as Darth Vader. The Council continually deceives him, even faking Obi-Wan's death. Ahsoka is expelled from the Order after being framed for bombing the temple, and even when Anakin proves she didn't do it, she still leaves. Watch my video about Anakin's fall, link in the description and maybe the iCard. In Revenge of the Sith, Anakin begins to dream of Padme's death, and insisting it won't happen, turns to Chancellor Palpatine and begs him to train him. Anakin falls to the dark side and is dubbed Darth Vader. Vader massacres the Jedi alongside the 501st during Order 66 and is eventually beaten but not killed by Obi-Wan on Mustafar, after which he's put into a suit. Padme dies, but she births the twins Luke and Leia beforehand. Oh, yeah, forgot to mention, she has been pregnant for the last little bit here. Darth Vader becomes a force of nature through comics, adjacent media, and the best-named song in the Star Wars saga, and he eventually ends up killing Obi-Wan, spinning, absorbing a blaster bolt into his hand, fighting Luke, and revealing he's Luke's father, and eventually betraying Palpatine, throwing him down a big hole and banishing him to the Shadow Realm for 2 whole movies. You can kind of put Anakin's arc on a chart like this, and once you start to label some of the points, you really see why he works so well. He warbles back and forth, eventually succumbs to the dark side, and eventually returns to the light and redeems himself. Throughout Anakin's 6 movies in a show arc, we see his fall to the dark side quite realistically and his redemption just as much. But now, at however long we are into the video, let's finally talk about... In my opinion, a good character redemption is preceded by 3 things. The initial motivation of evil, the foreshadowing of redemption, and the inciting incident of redemption. These 3 things can make or break your character. The initial motivation of evil is what caused them to become evil in the first place. The foreshadowing of redemption, I feel like that's self-explanatory, it's how is it foreshadowed. And the inciting incident of redemption is what is the moment that they come back to the light. We can see all of these in Anakin Skywalker's full arc. For his initial motivation of evil, look at the spikes on the graph. Why does the Tusken murder spree happen? His mother died. Why does this patent-pending Clone Wars evil spike happen? Watch this video and pick one of my points from there. And the final turn and the main motivation for the full turn is because he worries Padme will fall to the same fate his mother did, dying. To which I say, I have bad news about the linearity of time in the Star Wars galaxy, Anakin. Anakin's foreshadowing of redemption is called out multiple times, and in the same way from both Padme and Luke, saying there's good in him, I know it. We also have all of the movies and scenes from before his fall that show the good in him and how he protects those he cares about. The inciting incident of his redemption is watching his son get electrocuted and begging for his help. After everything we've watched, it's fully believable that Anakin would turn on the Emperor and save his son. Anakin's redemption is executed so well, in fact, that it makes other redemptions in media look so much worse. I'm talking about the MCU 2 videos in a row. I'm sorry, I meant to have another one out, and then I didn't. Falcon and the Winter Soldier was fine. There's good, and then there's most of it. But one of the worst parts of the show is the attempted redemption of John Walker. Apart from the fact that he shouldn't be redeemed at all and would be way more interesting character moving forward if he wasn't, John Walker's redemption is so lazy and unearned. Early in the show, we learn a little bit about John Walker, his military history, his idolization of Steve Rogers, and that he's nervous to take over the mantle of Captain America. John's initial motivation of evil stems from his friend Lamar Battlestar Hoskins' death, combined with the influence of the super soldier serum. This is good, actually, and it makes a lot of sense as to why he falls down a dark path, so to speak. What doesn't work as well is everything after this. He gets discharged from the military. Val recruits him to presumably join the Thunderbolts because focusing the story on the actual main characters is hard, and so you just have to, build out the rest of your universe. And so he builds his own shield and joins the final fight where he throws the shield away and tries to pull the vehicle back up. This is the part I want to focus on. This, characteristically, doesn't make any sense, and you can't call it growth because that would imply he learned a lesson, which he very obviously wasn't allowed to do. So what is this? Well, it's lazy, but it's also a terrible execution of the moment of redemption. In this moment, we have no reason to believe that Walker would throw away his shield, not hunt Carly, and save those people, because all he's wanted to do this entire show is stop the Flag Smashers. You could call this foreshadowed by his saying that he idolizes Steve Rogers, but that all goes out the window once he Soldier Boys a guy. His idolization of Steve isn't in the audience's head this whole show. This is, or when he fights Adora Milaje. All the nerves set up are never really paid off, so it might as well not be in there. His redemption doesn't work because his motivations don't work, and it's never foreshadowed beyond a line that's overshadowed by his later actions as a character. If Luke said, "Oh, I know there's good in my father," and then killed him, it wouldn't make any sense. Oh, wait, that's almost what happened. And then he looked down at his hand and saw who he was becoming, thus spurring him to cite his father's Jedihood and cementing his place in the light. There's no moment like this for John Walker. It doesn't work. What does work, though, is
Hello, Zuko here.
Guys, look, the brave video essayist is going to say something that's never been said before. Zuko's redemption is really good. I know, I'm so brave. I'm so brave, guys. I know I'm not breaking any new ground by raving about Zuko's redemption, but if this isn't number 2 to Darth Vader and Anakin, I don't know what is. He spends a season as a villain, a season lost trying to find who he is and what his place in the world is, and then he joins the gang in the 3rd season to teach Aang firebending and try to right the sins of his past. Obviously, it's a banger arc. I don't think anyone with an ounce of media literacy would disagree with me. Let's find the points, though, so I can pad this video beyond just the 5 minutes and justify like a month of uploads between subpar content. Zuko's initial motivation of evil, or wrongdoing, I guess in this context, is immediately sympathetic. He's burned by his father and then banished until he can find the Avatar of the Last Airbender. Right off the bat, he's shown to just be a child who wants to return home and make his father proud. Now, his inciting incident of redemption is difficult, because I feel like it's spread across a lot of episodes, and that's why it works so well. But some of the biggest moments are in Zuko alone, when he saves the child knowing what the consequences will be for himself, his date with Jin, and the freeing of Appa. I think the biggest one here personally is Zuko alone, because it's the start to his path of growth forward, and Iroh, his consistent moral compass, isn't there to give a heartbreaking speech like he is when Zuko frees Appa. And as I've mentioned, Zuko's redemption is foreshadowed constantly throughout the series. He tries to save Zhao, and then he spares him again in an Agni Kai. He helps Iroh, and even at the start of the series, he speaks out against his father sacrificing troops in the war. Zuko's redemption is foreshadowed harder than probably any other character ever. Look, character redemptions aren't super easy, and they're way more nuanced than a 3-point scale I threw together in the shower in between depressive episodes. Obviously, every villain can't be redeemed, and every villain shouldn't be redeemed. As I mentioned, William Afton isn't becoming a Force ghost anytime soon. But every time I think about villains, I subconsciously compare them to Darth Vader, the arc, and the redemption he goes through. Do I believe Anakin was redeemed for all his evil actions throughout his life? I don't know. That goes into a philosophy that I don't have the expertise or the courage to go into. But I do know one thing. It was good enough for the Force, and who am I to question a mystical energy field that influences everything?